Hi, everybody, and welcome to our online academic camp. And today, I want to let you know that Global Studies is ready to help you to apply to different destinations around the world. And you can study your undergraduate, your postgraduate studies, or maybe if you want to study some languages, well, we are here to help you to apply. Don't forget that you can find us in WhatsApp, and you have also here our email address, so you can contact us for free. We will be happy to help you to apply to the different options that are important for you. You can find us as Global Studies UK in our social media. You can follow us in Facebook, Instagram, X, TikTok, YouTube. Don't forget to contact us. And today, I am with Dr. Folashade Adeyemo. She's from Brunel University. Good morning, Doctor. How are you?
I am very well, thank you.
Today, Doctor. And we have an interesting subject to discuss today. Is watching this presentation. If you have some questions for Dr. Folashade Adeyemo, please write down your answering your questions at the end of the presentation. Doctor, please, your presentation is ready. Please go ahead. And thank you for being with us.
Thank you very much, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everybody, wherever you may be joining us from. My name is Dr. Folashade Adeyemo, so it's Fola for short. And today I'm going to be talking about law, criminology, and international law at Brunel University. So before we start, I thought it might be helpful to just give an introduction to myself and to give you an idea of one of the directions that a law degree could take you in. So my name's Fola, as I mentioned. I'm currently a senior lecturer in law at the University of Liverpool, but I also teach on the foundation program at Brunel University, the Pathway College. And I've been doing that for about 10 years now, give or take. In terms of my research, I'm interested particularly on financial crime or in financial crime within the African space. And so to this extent, I have 3 books which look at those specific or at specific areas of that agenda. The first book looks at banking regulation, the second looks at illicit enrichment, and the third looks at whistleblower protection. And then I'm interested in some other areas closely connected to this agenda. In terms of teaching, and in terms of my background, just to give you an idea before I start talking about the different kind of trajectories that you can take with a law or a criminology degree and other degrees such as international law. I studied an LLB degree first, and then I did a master's in law at Brunel University. And then I did my PhD also at Brunel University, and then I qualified as a barrister and solicitor in Nigeria. In terms of my teaching, I teach generally speaking within the commercial law space. So I teach things like financial crime, company law, commercial law, some aspects of criminal law, and some aspects of business law too. So that's really just to give you a bit of an idea or an overview as to one of the directions that you can take if you decide to study a law degree. But going into academia is not the only thing that you can consider. There are a vast number of different opportunities that you may wish to take advantage of. Studying law at Brunel Pathway College, so there are 3 different areas that studying law can take you into. And it's very important that you have a good idea in terms of the right path for you and how it's closely aligned with what you want to do in the long run. So in terms of BPC, just to give you a bit of an overview, as I mentioned, I've been teaching here for about 10 years, give or take. And so I teach on the foundation course. And one of the joys, I would say, of teaching on the foundation program is that I get to see a number of students who go through the foundation course and then do the law degree at Brunel. And then I see them go into these different areas which they wish to go into. So I have had students who have gone on to become lawyers. I've had students who have gone on to work for NGOs. I've had students who have decided they've loved the law degree, but actually practicing as a lawyer is not for them. So one of the things, so that's one of the things that for me is a joy in terms of teaching law. But when you come to BPC, if you should decide or wish to do so, what you'll find is that BPC is a very career and focused type of college. Specifically within the law program, we tend to anchor our program so that it gives you that global exposure and gives you the right foundation that you need for your law career if you decide to go into that. There are also some really good and strong industry links within the program. And one of the key aspects, I would say, is the fact that we have a very diverse international community. So you're going to see people from different walks of life, different cultures, different countries, etc., who bring to the program their different experiences. And the other thing, or the final thing I would say, is that when you study the program, you'll see the real world impact that exists within the program itself. So in terms of the session, just to kind of go over what we're going to talk about today, or what I'm going to deliver today, is we're going to look at what law is, what criminology is, what international law is, and definitely how you should choose, or some of the things that you should at least think about when it comes to you choosing which of these career paths is for you. So let's start with law. Why should somebody make the decision to study law? Law is a very diverse, diverse and a very, I would just call it a diverse program or subject. One of the things that we spend a lot of time doing, particularly on the Law Foundation program and also on the law degree, is helping you develop your critical thinking. So you'll find that a lot of law students, by the time they get to their second and third year, the way that they view things in terms of their ability to critically assess things is significantly sharpened from when they started. So studying the law gives you that ability to think critically about different things. It improves your communication skills. One of the things, and I'll talk about this in the subsequent slides, is the communication and your ability to advocate, if you like, for your client. So there are a lot of opportunities, I would say, to do a lot of mooting and also a lot of advocacy. So sharpening your ability to argue a point or to argue across a particular issue. In terms of problem solving, this is what you'll see particularly when it comes to your exams. So when it comes to your exams, you'll usually be given a variety of different problem questions or issues across your different modules that you'll study, and it will give you the opportunity to develop your ability to problem solve, both in the exam and also outside of the exam when it comes to real life situations. It also improves your understanding of global awareness. So one of the things that I teach students in the very first couple of weeks of criminal law, for example, is this global awareness of why do we have criminal law? What is the primary purpose and objective of having criminal law? What is the impact it has on society? What is the impact it has on morality? Does morality inform the way that we view the law? So these are some of the things that you'll start to develop and expand on if you decide to study law, or a reason as to why you should study law. Now, there are a number of different careers that you can go into with a law degree, okay? Some people you'll find do an amalgamation of a number of things with the law degree, and I'll use myself as an example. So number one, which is probably the most obvious, you might decide to go into legal practice. And I'll talk about this in a few slides, but there are a number of different areas that you might wish to go to when it comes to legal practice. You might decide it's family law that you're interested in, and so you'll qualify and become a solicitor or a barrister, for example, and focus primarily on family law. It might be commercial law. It might be property law, but legal practice is one of the areas that you can decide to go into with a law degree. You might decide that actually I've got this law degree, but business and finance is more what I'm interested in. And again, a law degree gives you the foundation to go into a business or finance or even a governmental type setting because you have that foundation. Remember that I had previously said that one thing that the law degree does is to develop your ability to critically think, to critically provide solutions to problems, and it certainly improves your global awareness. You might decide to go into an NGO, so a non-government organization. Your skills as a lawyer or skills as somebody who has a law degree would be fundamentally useful in such a setting. And you can decide to go into academia. So I mentioned previously, I qualified as a barrister and a solicitor. I decided that actually I didn't want to keep going to court and decided to go into academia. So academia is also a route that you can go into. And as I've mentioned, I have a number of different books that I've written on, which the law degree has afforded me the opportunity to be able to do so. So academia is also something that you can decide to do. So the law is focused on the study of legal rules which govern society. And again, one of the things that I talk about in my first couple of criminal law classes is what rules society? Is it morality or is it the law? In some countries, for example, the religious beliefs of their people are what informs how the law is applied to citizens in that country. So let's say, for example, you come from the UAE or you come from a region close to there, the chances is that the law is going to be informed by Sharia law or by law of the land in terms of their religious beliefs. If you go to somewhere else, for example, perhaps you come to the north, what is illegal perhaps in the south might not necessarily be illegal in the north. So it gives you the opportunity to study the laws which govern society and also how society is run and the laws in which those members of society have wished to be bound by, as it were. And when you study a law degree, if you decide to study what we call a qualifying law degree, then there are 7 core subjects that you will consider or that you will explore and have an examination of some sort around. And these core subjects include contract law, so contracts which exist between person and person or person and organization. You'll look at criminal law, so how does the law punish people who commit criminal offenses? We'll look at tort law, so this idea of negligence. Let's say, for example, somebody has an accident and the hospital gives wrong medication. How does the law reconcile these issues? You'll look at public law, so constitution and administrative law. So what happens if the government has made a decision on something which has an impact on you as an individual? What kind of review, we call this judicial review, is in place for something like this? We'll look at equity and trust. So what happens if when someone dies and they leave a will and they leave a trust to someone, how does the estate manage that trust on behalf of the person who has died? We'll look at land law, or you will look at land law. What happens when there's disputes over land, or, oh, my neighbor has parked on my property? What kind of remedies are available to help me address this issue? And then you look at EU law, freedom of movement of persons. Is it possible for me to be a citizen of one country and then move to another one and work there? What are the legal implications of that? So the law degree is a really packed degree which gives you the ability to explore fundamentally so many different things. Who should study law? Certainly those who enjoy debates. I remember when I was deciding whether to study law or not, one of the things that I particularly, and my parents said this to me, is that I really love debates and I really love to not necessarily argue, but articulate my point across. And I think one thing or one advantage that the law degree gave me was the ability to sharpen my ability to argue those points quite effectively. Remember that I said previously that one of the things that you'll look at with the law degree, particularly, is your ability to improve your communication and improve your ability to problem solve. somebody who likes analyzing cases or likes analyzing case matters. So, why did the courts decide this in this case? And how is it different from another case? And then people who want to qualify as lawyers. Okay, so as I've mentioned in the last couple of slides, if you are somebody who wants to practice as a legal practitioner, then of course, studying the law is something that you should most certainly consider. Now, criminology is slightly different from the law. Same sorts of foundations, but very different. While the law looks at this is what the law is and this is how we apply the law to this particular, criminology is more a study of the crime and its causes. So it might look at, okay, there's a murder that has taken place here, where the law will look at, there's a murder that's taken place here, what is the applicable law? Criminology looks at, this is a murder, but how did the murder come? What was the person's rationale behind the murder? What kind of behavioral patterns can we see when it comes to this person committing this particular law? So it explores aspects of psychology, beg your pardon, and sociology. So it's a very different tenet from the law itself. This looks at the why and looks at the causes as to why people commit particular offences. And who should study something like criminology? Those who are interested in human behavior. So the idea or the understanding of what goes on in someone's mind when they commit an offence, and then they commit the offence, and do they feel any kind of remorse? Okay. Whereas the law is more focused on this person has committed an offence. Can we prove they've committed this offence? What is the punishment for the person who's committed this offence? So criminology looks more at the human behavior. It's also more focused on social justice, okay? So the law is focused on getting justice for the person who is the victim, but this looks at it from a more societal perspective. So it looks at it from a, what can we do to prevent this for the general public, okay? So it's a mixture of society, so social justice, and also crime prevention. So making sure that this kind of crime does not happen again in the future. So students who are more interested in understanding the root causes of particular issues are probably better suited to studying criminology. And just before I move on from criminology to international law, I'd probably say that, again, if you're studying the law, you're most times, not always, but most times, you're studying it with an idea or the rationale of, I want to become a lawyer. Whereas with criminology, there's not really that flexibility. If you decide that you want to become a lawyer, as I mentioned in the slides here, a qualifying law degree, you have to study a law degree and those 7 subjects within the law degree. And that's what gives you exemptions when you then go to say, okay, I want to become a barrister or I want to become a solicitor. Whereas if you decide to study criminology, you would then have to do some additional exams to compensate for the fact that you don't have a law degree. I know that we now have the SQE, which means anybody from any degree can essentially study their degree of their choice, and then they can do SQE1 and SQE2, which is the lawyer conversion exams, as it were. But what you might find is that a lot of law firms prefer, of course, they will not say it so widely, but you generally tend to see that a lot of lawyers prefer students who have studied a law degree because it gives them that foundation. And then international law. International law talks about or reviews the law that governs relations between different countries. So a good example would be, let's say one country wants to import goods into another country. What law governs that transaction? Okay, so international law looks at the activities which exist between different countries and how the law regulates that. It also encompasses a number of different aspects, including but not limited to things like human rights, things like human rights, trade, and conflicts law. So anything as it pertains to country X and country Y comes under the terrain of international law, hence the phrase international. And who should study international law? Okay. almost similar to a law degree, but the emphasis here is when you're looking at the implications on the law governing different countries. And it is possible for you to take a law degree, but then for you to take what we call an optional module, which would then allow you to study an aspect of international law, okay? But students who are interested in international law as a whole are generally students who not necessarily want to have a law degree, but students who are thinking more globally in terms of policy work and policy considerations and the interaction between countries, as opposed to a local level with law, which looks at the law in one particular country. So if you're someone that enjoys politics, world affairs, trade law, you like human rights, you're thinking of a career on a more international scale, then I certainly would say that international law is something that is of use, or would probably be better suited to such a student. So as I've mentioned, quick comparison. So the law, generally speaking, it's usually students who are interested in practicing the law. They would be the ones that would go into legal practice. Criminology focuses primarily on the study of a crime. So it looks at, okay, this has happened. What is the rationale for this person who has behaved in this way? What are the human behavioral aspects that we need to consider? And how can we make sure that this is better for society? So it's not necessarily focused on the law, but really the study of the crime and the person, the perpetrator committing the crime. And then international law is more on a global scale. So it's more about the discussion and relation between different countries. So if you're somebody who's interested, as I mentioned, in politics or global affairs, then probably international law is something that is of more use to such a student. So why should you come to Brunel? You know, what are the selling points, I would say? First of all, it's located in London. So like I mentioned, I did my LLM and my PhD. So I'm a perfect poster child, I think, for Brunel. It's got very good close links to London. So when you take the train from Uxbridge or from Hayes and Harlington, where it's close to Brunel, you can be in London, like central London, in about 30, 40 minutes. So it's quite a good distance traveling wise. It's also very good if you're traveling internationally because the airport is about 20 or 30 minutes away, which is London Heathrow Airport. So it's got very, very good links into central London and the surrounding areas. Brunel really focuses a lot of its time on the employability aspect. So one thing I would say about this university is it goes beyond just giving the law degree. They are interested in making sure that you have a good degree, but also making sure that you get a good job at the end of the degree. And I think that whichever university you're thinking about, employability is a very, very important aspect, because what you don't want to do is to have studied the law degree and then at the end of the day, you don't really have a job at the end of it, or you're still trying to wonder, what's next after this? So when it comes to employability, they're actually very, very good in terms of helping you get into such a role. You'll find that a lot of the lecturers, a good number of the lecturers are research active. And what that essentially means is they are very proactive in their research, and that informs the way that they teach when it comes to the class. So if I use myself as an example, I focus primarily on things like criminal law, corruption, international financial crime, etc. And so when I'm teaching criminal law, for example, to my class, I'm able to use the research knowledge that I have for it to then inform my teaching and inform the way that I deliver my classes to students. So what you'll find is a lot of colleagues at Brunel are very, very research active. And, you know, it's helpful because it makes sure that you're also up to date when it comes to your understanding of the law and the surrounding subjects within whichever module it is that you're being taught. There's also an immense amount of support for internationals. So I think in the very earlier slides, I talked about the community and the international community therein. I would say a very, very large portion, well over half of the portion of Brunel students are international students. They come from different walks of life. some from China, Botswana, Nigeria, Kenya, Ghana, Pakistan, India, Colombia. There is a huge community of international students. And I think that that's definitely helpful, especially if you're someone that's studying away from home. You want to make sure that you have a good community, you can relate with other people, especially when you're feeling homesick. So I think that that's definitely a major plus, I would say. And, I don't know about other universities, but certainly from Brunel and certainly from my personal experience, having been a student at Brunel and taught at Brunel, I'd say that the support for international students is just phenomenal. And then in terms of the student experience, it's an amazing student experience. Again, I say this as someone who studied within Brunel. I was a member of a number of different teams or student societies, so I definitely would encourage you to sign up for any, if you decide to come to Brunel, sign up for any and as many of those societies. They've got a basketball society, they have an Indian society, a Nigerian society, they have for basketball. I think I heard recently they have for tennis. So, they have a number of societies to make sure that the student experience is exactly what it needs to be. In terms of mooting, I can say that on the foundation course, there's a large portion of the module where we spend a lot of those times debating different cases that have already happened and been decided, but students get the opportunity to act as that person's lawyer or to act as the judge in that case. And so what that also does is it exposes you to what we mean by advocacy and exposes you to the ability to sharpen your communication when it comes to communicating on these particular cases or even on a particular point. And that's actually quite key when it comes to particular modules like criminal law, and definitely when it comes to your examination. Because when you moot a particular case, what you're essentially doing is revising the case on the go. Secondly, you're improving your communication skills. And thirdly, you're improving your ability to advocate for your client. But most primarily, I think what I would say is you are sharpening your ability to solve a problem or your problem solving skills. And when it comes to your exams, this is exactly what your examiners are looking for. How well can this person solve this problem or solve this problem question that they've been presented with? So mooting really has a lot of really good benefits. The same with the real case studies. Gives you the ability to sharpen your understanding on particular areas and sharpen your understanding on the law. And then legal stimulations, again, this is mostly related to mooting and the real life cases, but it gives you the opportunity to ask hard questions. And I'll give you two questions, so slight trigger warning coming. One of the things that we look at in criminal law is marital rape, for example, and we look at what happens or what do we mean by consent. Is consent still relevant when you're married to the person? And this is always a topic of discussion when it comes to that. So it's definitely something that we will explore in a lot of detail when it comes to those debates. And we look at other things, other areas which stimulate your ability to look at a legal problem and say, well, actually, this is how I think we could approach this. And this is what I would say when it comes to the exam. So I would definitely say that in terms of legal stimulation, it gets you asking a number of different questions that, if not for the setting where you're mooting, you may not even have considered such a question before. So the student experience generally, especially when it comes to law or criminology or international law, is really something to think of, and it's really an exciting one. And then graduate success. I mentioned in a few slides previously, if I could just bring up the employability focus. When it comes to graduate success, a lot of Brunel graduates work in a lot of these different organizations or these different sectors. So you have graduates who work as a law firm, work as lawyers, they'll work in government settings and NGOs. They will go out and work in global companies. So I've had students in the past who work for Shell, who work for Total, who work for different companies which are not just in the UK. And then you have people like myself who then decide to go into academia. So there's a lot of good graduate success. And I think, wherever you're planning on going to, that's the one thing you want to keep in mind. how successful would I be post-graduation? And then choosing the right path. So depending on which path you decide to go on, you must make the decision based, I would say, on three aspects. Number one, your interests. What is it that you are really interested in and why are you interested in it? Remember that these are, whichever decision you make is a decision that will shape a large portion of your life. You can study a law degree and then decide, actually, I want to study something else, and that's fine. But it's important that you choose something that you're interested in. If you choose a law degree or even a criminology degree, this is a degree that you'll study for at least 3 years. So you have to have a good level of interest in it to be able to succeed in that place. And again, that goes with your career goals. Where do you see yourself in the next couple of years? And it's okay, actually, if you don't see yourself, if you can't really see where you see yourself, but you should start having an idea of, well, I'm quite interested in family law, or I'm quite interested in commercial law. Perhaps this kind of degree, perhaps criminology, or perhaps law is something that I want to focus on. So you need to have an idea in terms of your career path. And then in terms of learning style, everybody has different learning styles. So you also want to keep in mind that, particularly at Brunel, it's a very engaging and collaborative approach. So it's not just a lecturer standing and talking at you for 2 hours. There's really an opportunity to engage with the course material and engage with the lecturers and obviously engage with the debates. And we do this through a number of ways, like the mooting, like the improvement of your communication and advocacy skills. And I think that brings us to the end. So thank you very much. I hope you found this presentation of use. I'm happy to answer any questions. And so I hand over back to you, Hugo.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Folashade Adeyemo, for your presentation, for this, for the students that want to study at Brunel University. And yes, we do have some questions, please. Doctor, which intakes are available for the students that want to study?
Oh, the line, sorry, the line cut off. Which intakes are available for students who want to study?
For the students that want to study at Brunel University, please, which are the intakes available?
So for the foundation course, we have two intakes. We have a September intake and we have a January intake. And then for the undergraduate degree, I believe we have a September intake. So it will depend at what stage you're in now. It will depend on your grades as to which of the intakes. The foundation course is a foundation course first before you do the law degree. I would say a lot of students have found that to be extremely beneficial because it's your real first exposure to the law. And when you then start with your first year, you're in a better position than the first year students because you already have a good understanding of some criminal terms like actus reus, murder, theft, burglary. You already know some of those things. So it will essentially just depend on which stage you are in presently. But those are the intakes.
Thank you, Doctor. How long in advance the students coming from abroad need to be ready to start their courses?
I'm so sorry. The line keeps breaking. How much in advance?
Abroad that are applying from abroad. How long in advance?
Oh no.
What do you advise?
I'm so sorry. The line, it literally keeps breaking like this. So advice on how long in advance the students need to do what?
From abroad, how long in advance do they need to apply to Brunel University?
Oh, okay. So we have as soon as possible, I would probably say, but we have it depends on what it is that you're applying for. If you're applying through UCAS, my understanding is it's usually before the summer that you're going to start. But if you're applying for the foundation, I think there's a little bit more flexibility because there are two intakes. There's an intake in September and then there's an intake in January. So it will depend on which of those intakes you wish to apply. That will determine how well in advance you need to apply for. There is sometimes some last minute registrations which are allowed, but again, it will depend on your circumstance and when you're applying. So that's what I would say on that.
Thank you, doctor. And this is important that the students will remember that we as Global Studies are here to help you to apply to Brunel University. Our email address that you have here, and also in our WhatsApp number. You just have to contact us. It is free, so we will be happy to help you apply. To contact us and to follow us in our social media. You can find us as Global Studies UK. And doctor, please, are there options available when we're talking about accommodation?
Yes, we have student accommodation. Most international students will live on campus at least for the first year. You don't have to, you can find your own accommodation if you wish, but I think usually most students find it helpful because it helps them solidify their communities, and they get to class more easily, they get to know the campus a little bit more, and it's just a bit more comfortable. So yes, there is accommodation for students on campus.
Thank you, Dr. Folashade. I think we have no more questions by now, but as I told you, if you are interested in studying with Brunel University, to help you applying. So don't lose time, and we will be here help you applying for for university for Brunel University. Thank you, doctor, for this important guide.
Thank you.
Sure that students will appreciate all this information, and thank you everybody that was with us. I want to remember you, please, as going ahead with this online academic camp, we as Global Studies at 14 hours in UK time will be partial scholarships to register for IELTS to gain admission to UK universities. Danilova, she will be representing International House London, and we will be happy to with us. Don't forget, this is at 14 hours in UK time, and we'll be happy to have. Thank you, Dr. Folashade, and thank you everybody who was with us today. Thank you, everybody. We will be waiting for you for the next presentation. Thank you, and
Thank you
bye.
so much. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Doctor.